guys, it's Kelly and welcome to the 6th day of Bookmas. And today I want to talk about the 6 books that I DNF'd in 2018. So these are 6 books that I read a good portion of them, but then decided they were not for me and stopped reading it, so did not finish, DNF'd. So the first one is Heir by Sarah J. Maas, and this is the 3rd book in the Throne of Glass series. And I read the first 2 the previous year, and I liked them fine. Like, they weren't 5-star reads for me, but I felt that they were entertaining enough that I wanted to check out the 3rd because they're a really popular series. And so I tried Heir, and it just wasn't for me. Like, I tried Heir so many times, so I think I gave this a really fair chance because I think I started or like tried to read it 4 different times. So I first got it from the library. I read several chapters, and it took me long enough that it was due back to the library, returned it. A few weeks later, I got it again, tried again, got several more chapters. That happened 3 times where I just could not get momentum enough to like read it in the time allotted. And I think my library gives me like 4 weeks, so this was a big process. And finally, I got the ebook and was like, well, this will make it easier for me to finish it. And no, I think I made it to 50 or 60% of the way through, and I just was not getting into the story. I didn't like the direction it was going in. I felt like with this one, like the first 2 were kind of fun. They were more of like the tournament type style because, you know, she was, in the first one, she's doing the tournament in order to become like the king's assassin. And then by the time I get to the 3rd one, it became more of a traveling book. And I'm just gonna do a small spoiler, so if you don't want to be spoiled for the Throne of Glass series, please skip into the next book. But like, the direction it was going in, doing the whole fairies and her background being that she is fae, I believe, and like her going to the land of the fairies. I'm not a fan of fae books. Like, I know it's really popular right now, it's just not my thing. And when I started the series, I didn't realize that was the direction it was going in. And so when we got to Heir and it started veering that way, and I looked up reviews and found out that that's kind of like the rest of the series is in that kind of realm, it wasn't for me. So I stopped for that reason. And the other reason is because I just really don't like the main character. Like, I put up with her in the first 2 books because I liked some of the things that were happening. She bugs me because everybody talks about her being this like feminist character and her being the badass assassin, but she really doesn't do anything to qualify as either feminist or badass assassin. Like, she does kill some people, but like, it seems like it's really not a big part of like her personality. Like, most of the time it just seemed like she was making bad decisions. And I think if you are a badass assassin or a strong female character, making bad choices and just going by your gut and not listening to anybody around you, even your allies, is just not a strong person, in my opinion. And so she just seemed really foolish, and she just drove me insane. So I thought, with those 2 things, the main character and going into the fae world, done. So sorry if that's one of your favorite series. It's just not for me personally. I'm also not going to read A Court of Thorn and Roses because that is in the fae world. But I knew that going in, so I knew I wasn't going to read that. I just didn't know that about Throne of Glass. So the next one is Beauty Queens by Libba Bray. And this is about a group of beauty queens that was flying on a plane, like going to a competition, and the plane crashes on a island. And so they're trying to like figure out what they're gonna do, survive, all that. And I don't know how far I made it in this because I kept falling asleep, and that was the problem, was that I was listening to this audiobook, and I am somebody that listens to audiobooks regularly, and I don't always fall asleep, so this is the problem. Like, it was just not capturing my attention at all. Like, I would maybe get through 5 minutes of listening, and then I would be like asleep. So maybe I'll use this book as like a white noise background for me sleeping. But for actually reading as a book, it did not work for me. It, like, I just felt like nothing was happening in the plot, and that's why it just was dragging on for me. And maybe a lot more happens towards the end of the book, but I just could not get to that point. I was bored out of my mind. And then also, I felt like the characters were pretty one-dimensional. I thought Libba Bray was trying to make them unique, and like in the audiobook, the voices are different, and so you kind of can pick out who's who, but they all started to blend together to me because I couldn't like keep, because they all kind of had the same voice, not like the voice actor, but like just the way it was written, their voice, it seemed very similar that I couldn't keep the distinguishing factors apart, because when they talked, I'm like, oh, well, I don't know who that is. I have to remember like the accent instead of actually remembering the personality, if that makes any sense. So I'm not going to go back and try that again. No, it was just not entertaining enough for me. And the next one is Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. And this is a classic pirate tale. And I wanted to read it because it's a classic, and I was doing it as part of a buddy read. And usually when I do a buddy read, I power through even a book I don't love. But this one, I even told my buddy readers, I'm like, I can't finish this book. And this one, I made it the farthest. I think I made it 80%, maybe even 85% of the way. I only had like 4 chapters left to go. And I just was like, I could not care any less like about this plot. Like, it started out good. Like, I enjoyed the beginning where we see young Jim and like him meeting pirates and like him kind of getting sucked into an adventure. Like, I liked that part. But then once we were actually in the adventure, it just it didn't translate well on the page for me. Like, I like some pirate movies and things like that, but it just, as a book, I just couldn't really like picture the action. Maybe it was the way it was described. I don't know. I was just not like really getting into the action sequences. So I think I would like see a movie adaptation of this book. Just as a book, I was bored. And there was just a point where I realized I had zoned out for a couple chapters. And the thought of having to go back and read those chapters was too much for me. And it was only like 2 chapters. But I was like, if this is too much for me to go back and read these 2 chapters, I'm not going to finish the last 4. So I just gave up on it really far in. But like I said, I'm just going to watch the movie and be okay. The next one is called Perfect You by Elizabeth Scott. And this was one that I was just like looking through script and wanted like a cute romance, like YA contemporary romance. And I saw a picture of the cover and it looked really cute and the ratings were good, so I gave it a try. And this is probably the one I DNF'd the earliest. I think I only made it maybe 15% of the way through. Like, it pretty soon was not good for me. And this is just a basic like hate to love relationship kind of book. So it's about a girl, I think her name was Kate, and she is not very popular. Like, she kind of a loner at school. Her best friend that had been her best friend for years had over the summer became really beautiful and became part of the popular crowd, and so she just kind of is alone now at school. And then there's the other character, like the love interest named Will. He's like a popular boy at school. And what kind of brings them into each other's lives is that they both work at the mall. She is working at a kiosk that like her dad has purchased, and so she's not really happy about having to work at a kiosk in the mall. And then he works at one of the stores, and so he'll come by and he would talk to her because they both work at the mall, they both go to the same school, and she was so mean to him. And I know it's a hate to love romance, but it was like mean to the extreme, to the point where I'm like, girl, what is your problem? Like, he's just coming by and saying hi, and you are saying really horrible things to him. And just because he's popular, you think that he's trying to like trick you or something? Because he would just be like a genuinely nice person of like, oh, we work together, I pass you all the time, I know you from school, I'm gonna say hi, how are you doing? You know, isn't it suck to work at the mall? Like, normal people comments, and she would just like rip him apart. And I'm like, that just does not, I just didn't like her character and how like incredibly mean they started out. Like, I understand having kind of like witty banter in a hate to love, but this was not witty banter. This was like just downright, you are a jerk, and I don't know why he would like you towards the end of this book. So like, I gave up on it. There was also a part very close to the beginning where they have like their first kiss. So this is like in the first 10-15% they have their first kiss, and I was like, whoa, this is like way too early to have a kiss, because all she's been is really mean to you. Why would you even kiss her? And so like, as soon as that happened, I was like, I'm done, because what is he, like a glutton for punishment? Like, she hasn't even gotten to any kind of like character growth, and you're already kissing her when she's been nothing but mean to you. So no, it was not going to be for me. So I finished that one the earliest. The next one is The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. And I've had kind of an up and down relationship with H.G. Wells this year. It was my first year reading him, and I have read, I think, 3 of his books now. So I started out with the Time Machine and really loved it. Like, it was not necessarily one of my favorite of the year, but one of my favorite classics probably of the year. And then I read the Island of Dr. Moreau, and I liked it okay. Like, I still liked his writing in it, but the plot had a little lacking, so it was more like I think a 3 for me. Well, this one, I have been trying to read this one for so long, but I just kept putting it down because I just could not get into it. And his other 2 books that I had read, even if I didn't love the plot of Island of Dr. Moreau, his writing really stuck to me, and I think he does well at writing suspense. But in this one, it was just really lacking. Like, I didn't feel like it was suspenseful at all. I didn't really care at all about the mystery of why this man was invisible. There was also, he was, I think, trying to write an accent. I don't know if it was supposed to be Cockney or what the accent was he was trying to write, but I had a really hard time reading it because, like, it had a lot of apostrophes and, like, it was a different accent than he's written in his other books, and so I just had a hard time, like, figuring out what some of the characters were even saying, so that took me out of the story. And I think I made it about 60 or 70% of the way through, and I just decided that it was even a short book. I was trying to power through, but I just decided life is too short. I do not like this book. Doesn't mean I'm going to give up on him. I'm still going to read War of the Worlds, but this one was not for me. It just did not have his other flair for, like, the suspense as the ones I had previously read. And then the last book that I DNF'd this year was How to Love by Katie Cotugno. And I think this is the one that I have the most, like, kind of bad feelings towards. I don't know, there's a lot of things bothered me about this book. I did make it probably 40-50% of the way through before DNFing it, and I really tried, because this one I had started for the Lala-thon because it's one of the favorite books of Kayla from Books and Lala. And so usually, like, the ones that she picks, the contemporary she picks, I really enjoy. So I thought I would like it, and from the very beginning, I was not enjoying it. And part of that was that it goes back and forth in time. So this is a story about a girl who she had a crush on kind of a popular boy in high school. They did end up, like, dating, and then this isn't a spoiler because it goes back and forth, so we know from the very beginning what kind of the outcome is. So, like, in the past timeline is when she's, like, having that flirtation and starting to date this guy, and then the present time, I'm not sure how, it's not that many years later, because the thing is that she became pregnant, and this is, like, a few years in the future. So I think her daughter is not, like, a full-fledged toddler yet, so I think she might be, like, 2. So maybe it's only, like, 3 years in the future, because she would have been pregnant and then the 2 years that her daughter's been alive. And so it goes back and forth. But the problem is it goes back and forth, like, every single chapter goes back and forth, and I had a really hard time, like, feeling any kind of flow in the narrative because of the back and forth. Like, it was just unnecessary, I thought. Like, we could have just gone through a straight timeline, and I think it might have been more entertaining. But, like, going back and forth, I really lost interest because I already knew they were going to end up together in the past timeline because they had a baby together, and she was mad that he left. So they had to have had some kind of relationship in order to get there. And then I also just felt like the plot was, like, really slow moving. It didn't seem like much was happening in either timeline, so it was just, like, a lot of, I don't know, not necessarily emotional baggage, because there's going to be emotional issues when there's a baby involved and all that, but it just didn't have plot to go with that. And then the love interest was just terrible. Like, I did not understand why she liked this guy. Like, he was not a good person to her. He didn't seem very charming. I don't know, like, every time he was in a scene, I was like, why? Why do you like this guy in both timelines? I don't get it. Like, he hasn't even, like, changed much in the time from when they were in high school to now, like, several years later. And then the thing that finally made me DNF this was twice in this book, in the, like, 40% that I read, there was cheating. And, like, I am just one that does not enjoy cheating in a book when it is, like, I can handle it if it's the person that's supposed to be kind of villainous or the person that we're not supposed to like. so they cheat and we're not supposed to enjoy that character. But when the protagonist is the one cheating and we're supposed to be like on board with it because, oh, this is the person they're really supposed to be with, well then break up with the other person. Like, I just don't get why we're supposed to support somebody cheating. And I just could not get on board with like support. I didn't like her to begin with, but then like add on the cheating, it was too much for me. So that's the reasons I gave up on those books. So if you have any comments about these books or books that you DNF'd because you had strong feelings one way or the other about, please let me know down below. All right, see you tomorrow. Bye.